All right, what's up? It's Elijah Campbell from 107.5 The Game here in the 107.5 The Game truck. Just got back in here from Bon Secours Wellness Arena where the South Carolina Gamecocks with a dominant SEC championship win over Texas. And trust me, no coin flip needed to determine this one. This breakdown brought to you by Atkins Law, Lexington Discount Homes, and Windland Foods. Thanks to them for sponsoring my trip here, sponsoring this video as well. And man, where to start with this game? I think the story of this championship game can be told by the defense of South Carolina. The big stretch of this was the second quarter. It was a one-possession game, South Carolina holding a narrow first quarter lead, to which both defenses were shutting each other out. Somebody had to make the first punch, land the first punch in this game, and South Carolina did so. They outscored Texas 21-6. Again, 21-6. It was a dominant quarter, and that set the tone for the rest of the game, and they did so without fouling. That's what I find to be the most impressive part, right? Playing great defense can sometimes mean being really physical, or maybe being too physical at times. But they made sure they go through an entire half of basketball without Texas shooting a single free throw. And when I was talking to Bree Hall after the game, she was mentioning what Madison Booker, the star player for Texas, does really well, who was held in check for most of this game and did not have a point to the first quarter and a half or so of this ball game until a jumper late, and she missed her first 5 jumpers, and none of them were comfortable. But Bree was telling me that, when watching film of Madison Booker, she knows she loves to get to her mid-range game and get it into her mid-range pull-up, which is probably the best part of Madison Booker's game, right? That's one of the reasons why she became the SEC Player of the Year, because she is very lethal off the bounce, especially from that 15 to 17-foot range. And Bree Hall made sure that if she's going to get to those spots, and it's hard to keep her away from those spots, to make sure all those shots were contested. And today, every single one of them was contested, and I think that made a huge difference. Texas's offense over the last couple of weeks has kind of been stagnant whenever Madison Booker isn't shooting particularly well. Even in some of their more dominant defensive games, like at Georgia a couple weeks ago, they won 57-26. Yeah, they held Georgia under 30 points, which is wild, but they only scored 57 against a bad Georgia team. Sometimes when Madison Booker goes cold, Texas goes cold. And I think South Carolina knew that if they packed in the paint and they made Texas shoot outside jumpers, even the non-Booker players like Rory Harmon, then they were going to have a hard time scoring enough points to win this game. And that reigned true today. Chloe Kitts being the MVP of the tournament is very fitting. The way that she dominated the fourth quarter against Vanderbilt and helped pull away in that game in the quarterfinal. She gave 10 solid points yesterday. She was the leading scorer today and had a fantastic job finishing around the paint, hitting a jump shot, getting offensive rebounds. It was Texas, the team in Austin, that won the game from the rebounding battle, that got the key offensive rebounds and second chance points when it mattered most. Today it was South Carolina, and today it was a lot of Chloe Kitts in that regard too. A very well-deserved MVP for Chloe in this game. And it's a real testament to how she's been able to improve from one year to the next. Like, she put in a ton of work, getting extra muscle, being able to finish inside with more regularity and more efficiency. And I think that's really paid off when you look at some of the results this year. When you looked at how she closed out the Michigan game, first game of the year, how she closed out the Duke game early on in the season at CLA, how she closed out the quarterfinal against Vanderbilt, and then how she was able to make the big plays when it mattered in the SEC championship game to beat Texas. Where does this leave South Carolina now? In my opinion, this should leave them as the #1 overall seed in the NCAA tournament. I would find it absurd if they're not. Look, they have 16 quad 1 wins. They have beaten the team that is the #1 team in the country, the Texas Longhorns, twice now. They won the SEC regular season, a league that I think is generally viewed as the toughest league in college basketball, and they won the tournament and left no doubt in that tournament game too. The 16 quad 1 wins is easily the most in the country. The wins that they got, they're now in double digits in terms of wins against teams in the net top 20. And then one more if you count Vanderbilt in the top 25, because Vanderbilt's in between 25 and 20. But no other team in college basketball has that. I know there's the loss at UCLA back in November, I know there's the Texas loss, which now really shouldn't even be something considered as heavily, considering they got round 3 and South Carolina was clearly the most dominant team in round 3. And if we just even do aggregate score, it's South Carolina by a lot. And I know the UConn game happened, and I know that was a really ugly game, and the more further we get removed from it, the weirder it becomes, considering how this team has played in spurts. This is clearly the number 1 team in the country. This is the best resume in the country, and that's what matters the most when it comes to fielding the NCAA tournament. South Carolina has the best resume. Bam. Bar none. I mean, no one else has the amount of quad 1 wins, the net top 20 wins that they do, without having a bad loss. If you look at the teams that are ranked in the net, they don't have a net loss outside a team in the top 5. And they only have 3 of those losses. Best team in the country. Another SEC championship. Don Staley cuts down more nets. This is an incredible ride. And once again, the best program in women's college basketball showed why they were in their dominant SEC championship win over Texas. More on this tomorrow from all of our shows at 107.5 The Game, starting with Jen Jensen, Bill Gunner, and Preston Thorne in the early game, all the way up to my show, and Jay Phillips on the post-game show from 3 to 6. Can't wait to break this down in further detail and be able to look ahead to the NCAA tournament. Thanks for tuning in this week, following along with our coverage, listening to myself and Tyler Head earlier today, and of course, all of our SEC women's basketball tournament coverage brought to you by Atkins Law, Lexington Discount Homes, and Windland Food. So thanks to all of them for being able to sponsor this. It's been an absolute blast. Can't wait for the NCAA tournament. I have a really good feeling I'll be doing a very similar video like this in Tampa, but we'll see. A lot of basketball left. Talk to you guys tomorrow.